The tribunal hall went silent the moment the human stood, not because she was loud, not because she was large, but because she didn't look afraid. Commander Elena Ward stood alone beneath the vaulting crystal ceiling of the Galactic Coalition High Chamber, surrounded by 1,000 alien eyes. The air smelled of charged minerals and recycled ozone. Light from floating sigils reflected off her dark naval uniform. No armor, no weapons, just calm, controlled, watching. Across the chamber, an alien delegate rose sharply. "This council will hear why Earth must be punished." Elena's lips curved into a faint smile, and that was when the galaxy realized this hearing was never about guilt. It was about warning. Ambassador Jacorin of the Virel Dominion extended to his full height. His elongated frame shimmered with pale cobalt skin, ceremonial plates clicking softly as he moved. His wide, glassy eyes swept the chamber, feeding on attention. "For 3,000 cycles," Jacorin said, his voice melodic and cold, "the Coalition has enforced the unified laws of conflict. These laws exist to protect civilizations from annihilation." A projection bloomed above the chamber floor. A star system burned red. 21 days ago, in the Relos Verge, human forces violated every one of those laws. A low ripple moved through the hall. Elena did not move. The humans deployed kinetic bombardment in inhabited orbitals. They struck marked medical vessels. They boarded ships using physical weapons and engaged in direct slaughter. The image shifted. Human marines tore through an alien hull, steel blades, projectile rifles, blood floating in zero gravity. Gasps echoed from the upper tiers. "They even disguised warships as hospital craft," Jacorin continued, his voice sharpening. "They turned sanctuaries into traps." The footage showed a white-marked medical cruiser drifting helplessly. Then it opened fire. Alien ships ruptured in cascading explosions. The chamber erupted. Delegates rose from their seats. Some shouted. Others recoiled. Several demanded immediate sanctions. One called for Earth's military dismantlement. Another demanded isolation of the Sol system. Elena waited. When she stood, the sound died instantly. She was small compared to most of them, human-sized, fragile-looking. But she moved, like someone who had walked through fire and come back with answers. "Honored delegates," she said calmly. "I am Commander Elena Ward of Earth Defense Command. I was present at Relos Verge." Jacorin's eyes narrowed. "Do you deny these charges?" Elena met his gaze without blinking. "No." The chamber froze. "I confirm every action shown here," she continued. "The footage is accurate." Shock rippled outward. Judge Arbiter Calith, a towering crystalline entity of the synth ascendancy, pulsed with refracted light. "Order," Calith intoned. "The human representative will be heard." Jacorin gestured sharply. "Then let the charges be stated clearly." Symbols ignited across the display. Article 7, Prohibited orbital kinetics near civilians. Article 12, Absolute protection of medical vessels. Article 15, Prohibition of boarding combat. Article 23, Ban on weaponized humanitarian platforms. Each law glowed like an accusation carved in light. "These codes," Jacorin said, "were forged after the Great Unraveling, when unchecked war erased entire star clusters." Ambassador Thalessa of the Pelagic Concord spoke next, her voice translated from resonant waves. "These laws preserved peace. Without them, we return to extinction." A mineral delegate rumbled agreement. "They fight like beasts," he said. "Not like civilized minds." Elena listened. Her face gave nothing away. Inside, she replayed briefings, patterns, coalition response trees, predictable outrage vectors. Exactly as projected. Jacorin spread his hands. "Earth must submit to coalition oversight. Reparations must be paid. And human forces must swear obedience to the unified laws." Approval sounds echoed around the chamber. Arbiter Calith pulsed again. "This tribunal will recess for one standard cycle. Earth will present its defense upon return." As the chamber emptied, Elena remained seated. Her aide, Lieutenant Marcus Hale, leaned close. "They want to cage us," he whispered. "How do we justify this?" Quote. Elena finally smiled. "It wasn't warm, Marcus," she said quietly. "They think this was chaos." Her eyes followed the departing delegates. "They haven't realized it was rehearsal." The next cycle began with fear. Coalition investigators flooded the archives. Battle analysts dissected Relo's verge frame by frame. What they found unsettled centuries of doctrine. In a research spire overlooking the station's core, scholar Ixeth of the Accord Collegium hovered amid drifting data panes. Her vaporous form shifted from calm teal to sharp crimson. "These aren't reactions," she whispered. "They're contingencies." Her assistant, a young Varel analyst, stared at the projections. They trained for urban combat, vacuum combat, toxic atmosphere assault. Ixeth pulsed dark orange. They planned for casualties, acceptable losses. They calculate how many of their own may die to achieve objectives. The assistant recoiled. Why would anyone plan to lose lives? Ixeth dimmed. Because they assume war will cost them everything. Elsewhere, military leaders gathered in grim silence. War Speaker Cordons of the Viral Dominion replayed the boarding footage again. Human soldiers moved with terrifying coordination. No hesitation, no mercy, no wasted motion. They weren't disabling systems, Corton said slowly. They were eliminating resistance. An energy form admiral crackled uneasily. Why use solid projectiles? Corton paused the image as a human struck a Viral soldier with the rifle stock. Because energy weapons can be countered. His voice lowered. These cannot. The room fell quiet. In Earth's diplomatic quarters, Elena sat across from Dr. Mara Kessler, xenopsychology lead. They're terrified, Kessler said, because none of them evolved as predators. Elena scanned a report. And us? We did, Kessler replied. We chased prey until it collapsed. We learned endurance, coordination, killing when necessary. Elena looked toward the stars beyond the viewport. So they wrote laws to stop destruction. Kessler nodded. And we wrote doctrine to survive it. That night, deep in Coalition archives, Archivist Prime Author reviewed human history, 5,000 years of war, endless adaptation, manuals older than spaceflight, strategy as inheritance. Ulthar dimmed his lights. They didn't stumble into violence, he whispered. They refined it. When the tribunal reconvened, the chamber was heavy with unease. Arbiter Calith glowed uncertainly. Commander Ward, the judge said, you may now present Earth's defense. Elena stepped forward, her voice carried easily. You accuse us of violating your laws, she said. You are correct. She paused. A smile touched her lips. But you still don't understand why we never intended to follow them. The chamber leaned in. And somewhere, deep in Coalition command channels, emergency reviews had already begun. Because the humans weren't on trial anymore. They were being studied. The chamber did not breathe. Not metaphorically. Literally. Species that required oxygen slowed their intake. Energy forms dimmed their oscillations. Even the crystalline judges held their light steady. Commander Elena Ward stood alone at the center of the Asterix high chamber. You believe the unified laws are universal, she said evenly. Immutable, natural. She lifted her wrist. A hologram unfolded above the chamber floor. But laws are only answers to specific fears. The image resolved into a galactic timeline. Bright points of peace, then darkness. 3,000 cycles ago, Elena continued, your civilizations survived the great unraveling. You nearly erased yourselves. So you wrote rules to prevent that horror from ever returning. Dead worlds rotated slowly in the air, glassed planets, broken stars. You learned that unlimited war leads to extinction. She let the image fade. We learned something else. A new display appeared. Earth, scarred, divided, burning across centuries. We learned that limited war leads to defeat. A ripple of discomfort moved through the delegates. War Speaker Corten rose. His pale skin darkened with agitation. You admit you reject restraint, he said. You admit you ignore safeguards. Elena met his gaze. No, she replied calmly. I'm saying we learned restraint must serve survival, not replace it. She gestured, and the display shifted again. This time, it showed the Relos verge before the battle. The Viral fleet entered in perfect formation. Textbook alignment. Command vessel protected. Medical ships clearly marked and shielded. Weapons powered, but unfocused. You followed your doctrine flawlessly, Elena said. Broadcasting compliance demands. Preparing humanitarian response units. Expecting surrender. Corten's mandibles tightened. That is civilized warfare. Yes, Elena agreed, between civilizations who share your assumptions. The hologram zoomed out and revealed what had been invisible. Human ships, dozens of them, scattered through civilian traffic lanes, embedded in mining operations, docked as cargo haulers, drifting as research platforms. A murmur rose. These vessels were not hiding, Elena said. They were behaving exactly like your sensors expect non-combatants to behave. Quote, Scholar Ixeth floated higher, her form flaring red. Those were warships. Yes, Elena replied, every one of them. She highlighted a white-marked hospital cruiser approaching the Virel formation. You assumed this was a protected medical vessel? She said. Because under your laws it had to be. The hologram peeled back its hull. Beneath the surface lay layered armor, concealed launch bays, and weapon arrays calibrated to coalition blind spots. This was not a medical ship with weapons added, Elena said. It was a battleship designed to look harmless. Representative Thalesa's water chamber churned violently. Our sensors would have detected. They detected exactly what they were designed to detect, Elena interrupted gently. We studied your sensor doctrine for 12 months. We learned what you consider impossible. She paused. And we built inside that space. The chamber grew colder. When your fleet fired on that vessel, Elena continued, you believed you were enforcing order. The hologram replayed the moment. The medical ship's distress signal flared. Human vessels across the system shifted simultaneously. That signal was not a cry for help, Elena said. It was the attack order. The ambush unfolded in horrifying clarity. Human ships shed disguises, targeting vectors snapped into place. Precision strikes severed command and control. Escort vessels were disabled, not destroyed. Power grids collapsed in controlled cascades. You lost command authority in the first 90 seconds, Elena said, because your doctrine places leadership in predictable locations. Corton's posture sagged. We studied 17,000 coalition engagements, Elena continued. You repeat the same tactical patterns in 95% of conflicts. She looked around the hall. You call that stability. We call it vulnerability. The hologram shifted again. Now it showed the boarding actions. Human Marines cutting through hull plating. Moving through corridors with ruthless efficiency. Gasps echoed. You expected standoff engagement, Elena said. Energy exchanges. Negotiated surrender. Quote, her voice hardened. We closed distance. Dr. Mara Kessler rose from the Earth delegation. May I clarify the psychological dimension? Arbiter Caliph pulsed assent. What you witnessed, Kessler said, was not chaos. It was instinct refined by training. The display changed to ancient Earth, humans running across plains, surrounding prey, driving it forward. We are pack hunters, Kessler continued. We evolved to fight up close, to coordinate under stress, to function inside violence. The hologram returned to the boarding footage. When humans enter confined spaces, we become more effective, not less. Several delegates recoiled. Elena resumed control. But understand this, she said. Everything we did was restrained. The chamber stirred in confusion. We could have annihilated your fleet in 5 minutes, Elena said flatly. Our concealed vessels had sufficient firepower to reduce every ship to debris. The hologram showed simulated alternatives, total destruction. Instead, the actual outcome played. Disabled ships, intact hulls, crews evacuated. We chose capture, Elena said. We chose minimal loss of life. We followed our own proportionality laws. Thalesa's voice trembled through her translator. If you had this power, why show restraint? Elena's expression softened. Because we do not kill for pleasure. We kill to end threats. She let the hologram fade. The difference between us is not morality, she said. It is honesty. Cortan lowered himself slowly back into his seat. You exploited our laws, he said quietly. Elena shook her head. No, she replied. We respected them enough to understand where they fail. She looked directly at the council. You wrote laws to prevent another great unraveling. Her voice dropped. We wrote ours to prevent extinction by hesitation. Silence swallowed the chamber. Arbiter Caliph pulsed uncertain light. Commander Ward, the judge said, what is it that Earth seeks from this tribunal? Elena took a breath. We seek coexistence, she said, but not at the cost of our survival. She straightened. Our doctrine is not negotiable. Our preparedness is not aggression. Her gaze swept the hall. It is insurance. The delegates whispered urgently, some in fear, some in anger, some in dawning understanding. The tribunal recessed once more. Outside the chamber, coalition commanders began emergency doctrine reviews. Analysts flagged vulnerabilities they had never imagined mattered. Centuries of assumed safety cracked. That night, Elena stood alone in her quarters, watching alien ships drift past the station. Lieutenant Hale joined her quietly. "They're scared," he said. Elena nodded. "They should be." She turned from the window. "Fear is what made them write rules," she said. "Now it's what will make them rethink them." Beyond the station, the galaxy was changing, and tomorrow the tribunal would decide whether humanity was a threat, or the standard by which future wars would be measured. The Asterix high chamber felt smaller than before, not because its walls had moved, but because certainty had. Commander Elena Ward stood once more at the center of the tribunal, alone beneath the crystalline vault. The delegates returned to their seats in uneasy silence. No shouting this time, no outrage, only calculation. Judge Arbiter Caliph pulsed with muted light. "This tribunal has reviewed the evidence," Caliph said. "The findings disturb long-held assumptions." A pause, a sensory stillness. "Commander Ward," the judge continued, "you have demonstrated that humanity did not act out of ignorance or recklessness. You acted deliberately." Elena inclined her head slightly. "Yes." War Speaker Cortin rose slowly. His posture lacked the confidence it once held. "You admit you engineered doctrine specifically to exploit coalition behavior." Elena met his gaze. "We engineered doctrine to survive first contact with anyone stronger than us." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Cortin's voice lowered. "And if another species followed your example?" Elena did not hesitate. "Then they would finally be fighting honestly." The words landed like gravity. Representative Thalessa shifted within her water chamber, currents churning. "Our peace has lasted 3 millennia because we removed uncertainty from war." Elena nodded. "And you did so by assuming everyone would think like you." She took a single step forward. "That assumption almost cost you a fleet." The chamber tightened. Elena raised her wrist one last time. A final projection unfolded. 2 timelines appeared side by side. On the left, coalition doctrine unchanged. Predictable formations. Protected sanctuaries. Ritualized conflict. On the right, adaptive warfare. Asymmetry. Deception. Contingency. "This," Elena said, indicating the first, "creates stability only as long as no one breaks the rules." She shifted her hand. "This," she said, indicating the second, "creates survival when someone does." Silence stretched. Judge Caliph pulsed brighter. "The coalition was founded to prevent annihilation," the arbiter said. "Your doctrine threatens to destabilize that foundation." Elena's voice remained calm. "No," she replied. "It exposes the cracks already in it." She lowered her hand. "You fear us because we reminded you of something you tried to forget." The delegates leaned in despite themselves. "War is not civilized," Elena said quietly. "It is not clean, it is not fair." Her eyes hardened. "It is a test of who adapts faster when everything goes wrong." Corden sank back into his seat. "What you're saying," he said, almost to himself, "is that our peace depended on shared restraint." "Yes," Elena answered, "and restraint is fragile." Judge Caliph dimmed, then flared white. "The tribunal must decide," the arbiter said, "whether humanity is a destabilizing threat or a necessary evolution." The chamber waited. Finally, Caliph spoke. "The coalition will not impose military oversight on Earth." A wave of shock passed through the hall. "Nor will we demand compliance with the unified laws as written." Gasps followed. "Instead," Caliph continued, "we will begin immediate review and revision of coalition military doctrine." The words echoed. "Humanity will retain full control of its forces." Elena remained still. "But understand this," Caliph added. "Your methods will never be universally accepted." Elena nodded once. "We didn't expect them to be." She straightened. "We only needed you to understand them." War Speaker Cortin rose, one last time. "And if the coalition one day faces an enemy that does not respect our laws," Elena met his eyes, "then you'll want us standing beside you." The chamber fell silent. No one argued, because every delegate understood the truth now. Humanity had not broken the rules out of savagery. They had outgrown them. As the session ended, conversations ignited across the station. Military commands issued emergency audits. Diplomatic corps rewrote threat models. Strategic assumptions collapsed. In her quarters, Elena watched the stars drift past the viewport. Lieutenant Hale stood beside her. "So," he asked quietly, "did we win?" Elena exhaled. "No," she said. "We changed the game." Outside, the galaxy adjusted to a new reality. Peace no longer rested on shared assumptions. It rested on preparedness, on adaptability, on understanding that rules only matter until survival is on the line.